Right. So for this project, I'm working on a maze game, and for this maze game, I have done some research into maze and labyrinth design. So I think like what makes them interesting and stuff like that. Where's the thing to play? It's like there's meant to be a present button, right? Slide. Turn on the offline access. Sure. Alright, it's not letting me. Alright, anyway, so I'll just go through like this. So this is my. Here's a photo of a maze. There's the source. It's from Wikimedia. You can see it at the bottom left. And this is a photograph of a labyrinth. Source is, I believe this isn't actually Origin, but this is where I got it from. I felt like it would have been a bit difficult to find the exact original. So the difference between maze and labyrinth is basically that mazes use a lot of choices, like very misleading ones. You go down a bunch of paths and then you're in the complete wrong place. Well, a labyrinth has one main path, and yeah, this is a pretty decent diagram of it, I believe. I believe that a labyrinth is able to have maybe a few slight offshoots. No, I don't know. Hold on, I've done my research on this. What really matters is that a maze is a lot more varied, way more varied. Look at this compared to this. Labyrinths are pretty much just one path. Oh yeah, mazes are very splitting, and you can become lost in them. Yes. Here's a screenshot from 3D Monster Maze. It's often credited as one of the earliest horror games ever made, and it's a good example of a way to make a maze more interesting. So, mazes, as I say here, can be quite boring to some players. So it's a good idea to make them unique, like add some element that's not like just blatantly gonna be there, like paths and an exit. Like player spawn the player. A good example is an enemy, like the T-Rex from 3D Monster Maze. And other examples of ways to make it interesting would be stuff like looping, like the maze loop. Like you say, you get to one side and then it takes you to the other. Yeah, that's a pretty good example of it. And another example of how to make a maze interesting would be to add a key that you need to access. Like you pick up a key, and that's what you need to exit the level, or possibly even access some secret area. It's always something you can add, secrets. I think I will add some kind, but I'm not sure what. But yes, a key that's needed for something, usually finishing the stage, the level, going on to the next level or getting to the credits or whatever. Time limit, as I say here, a time limit can put constraints on the player, makes them have to really just dash about in the maze, be more logical with it. I think one more logical thing to do would be to hug one wall and just follow it. But yeah, whatever works for them. But yeah, it requires them to just run and not just sit around for ages. So them to really just think about where they've been on the fly, rather than being able to just sit down, map out the whole maze, and then do it. Which, I don't think many people do, but it's always possible. There is a quote about a quote that I used. This is from what's it called again? Challenges for game designers. That's why I cited there. So let me here's the specific part where I got some of the quotes from. Where is it? Yeah, this block is where the two quotes I used there are from the More Than a Maze challenge from it. Yeah, this is the front cover. Yes, sorry, I got a bit confused about what I was meant to go back to. Yeah, so of course stuff like about how basic maze can be boring and asking me to brainstorm mechanics, and that's stuff I did. I also researched possibilities on Google. I must admit I've forgotten some of the places I learned these from, but what's important is I did learn them, I think. Now, making a labyrinth interesting, it's very similar to mazes, but also different. Like, they don't have a bunch of splitting paths, it's one main path. And much like in mazes, a threat could be added, for example, or a clear condition. That's an example. Yes, I forgot to mention that while I was narrating this. A clear condition basically requiring that you have to do one thing in order to progress. I know they're a thing in Mario Maker 2, where say you have to reach the goal as Super Mario, for example. So you have to get a mushroom and you can't finish it with a fire flower, stuff like that. So you have to get yes, that's an example in popular culture. I remember playing that game pretty good. You could much like how you could use it in a maze, you could also use it in a labyrinth. So some settings it could be good to have doorways. I remember a game that did that. It was in a hotel. There were these monkeys that chased the player. I think it's meant to be set. I don't know, from the theming it felt like it was meant to be after death, but I only watched people play it. Dark Deception, I think it was. Yeah, that sounds right. But I believe there was like a hotel in one, like I think it was the first level, and there were doors that could lead you to. Most of them you couldn't go through, but there were ones that you could, like one or two where there was like a secret collectible item. And yeah, that was required for 100% completion. So I could always do that, and I'm pretty sure that was in a maze, but it could also be applicable to a labyrinth. Yes, labyrinth. Yeah, there's a lot. I feel like mazes are probably more popular than labyrinths. Except that's what I would assume, because they usually don't even call them labyrinths, or they do, and I don't notice. Oh well, there's definitely a mix. Anyway, yes, you could make them open a door and hide things within them. As I said here, in my project, the maze game I plan to make, I do plan to include some elements like keys to open doors. I'll try and learn how to do that, and possibly make a maze loop, which I feel like it might be a bit difficult to learn how to do. Just have to make it look like the maze is actually looping. Much easier to do from a top-down perspective than it is from a first-person 3D perspective. But I don't know. Maybe if I could put in enough research to do that. Yes. Other elements I could feature. I only mentioned a couple. Yeah, I don't plan to make a labyrinth. Could include secrets, but what I do depends on what I choose to do. What other elements could I include? A threat. Yes, I could always include a threat. Maybe not a T-Rex, because I'd kind of be like copying them, but it could also be a nice homage. Just the time limit. Anything I mentioned before, honestly, could be good. But to make the game more interesting, I definitely will need to add something other than just the place you spawn and the place you leave. But probably a key. So you have to go from X to Y and then go from Y to Z. But if you go straight from X to Z, then you have to go from Z to Y and then back to Z. Hope that made sense. Yeah, so that's roughly what I plan to do, and that's how my research should help me with what I create. I hope the project does well. Yeah. That's it's not as long as I would have wanted it to be. Really. I don't know what else could I say? Other things. What else could I feature? I should mention something else. Enemies. There could be an enemy that's only appears when you close your eyes. I've definitely seen some games do that. Horror games, that of course. I think an example of. I haven't played it, but I think PT might count as a labyrinth. I mean, like, you go down like a certain hall and then you go through a door and you just go down the same hall. So it's pretty much one path. So I suppose that could be described as one as an example. Should have had more illustrations really. Yeah. That's about what I plan to do in my project. So yeah, that is all. Really, that's all I have to say. So yeah, that's that. Yeah, I hope the game's good.